Number 5 on this list is Atuk. This movie isn't one that you're going to be able to find on Netflix or anything like that, and let me tell you why. Insider says if you've never heard of Atuk, that's because this movie was so cursed, it never actually got made. Ironically, it wasn't even supposed to be a scary movie. A comedy about an Inuit hunter using traditional techniques to survive in an urban environment. It's not the movie you would immediately suspect is ripe for a cursing. Yet, many of the actors who were signed on to play the lead role have died prematurely, including John Belushi, Chris Farley, and John Candy. Actors who were cast in supporting roles weren't immune either, with Phil Hartman also facing a violent and tragic early end after being attached to the film. It's definitely a bit of a stretch to suggest that this movie was somehow involved in the deaths of these actors, but it is quite an incredible coincidence that they all met an early demise after getting involved. In any case, it's certainly interesting that multiple attempts to develop and produce this movie have never come to fruition. I think it's also certainly interesting that people who keep trying to make this movie keep freaking dying. Like, why is this happening? I understand that it seems like a bit of a stretch to say this movie has anything to do with it, but what the heck else could it be? How many times did just a bunch of people start doing a thing and dying right when they start it? Like, I feel as if this doesn't happen that often, guys, and somehow, some way, this movie or maybe the script has something to do with it. Maybe the director or the producer or the writer of this movie is cursed, and that's why they were never able to actually get it done. Rest in peace to everyone who tried to make this thing. I'm sure it would have been a funny movie, but I think it's best for everyone involved if we call it quits before more people end up getting hurt. Number 4 on this list is The Conjuring. They haven't been able to make a movie in this series yet without something going wrong. Insider says pretty much every movie in the Conjuring universe has had some spooky happenings on set. Based loosely on the real experiences of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, all Conjuring movies were absolutely terrifying. There have been so many reports of strange and paranormal happenings on the sets, it's hard to pick just one. They're all equally creepy. Annabelle had reports of light fixtures falling on actors, and The Conjuring had actors finding mysterious bruises on their bodies. But the paranormal activity on the set of The Nun was especially interesting because this is one of the few cases where there was just a good old-fashioned haunting on the set. Director Corin Hardy stated that he encountered 2 spirits while filming on location at a fortress in Romania. He stepped into a room while the cameras were rolling and found 2 people he assumed were crew members. When the camera stopped rolling and he turned around, they were gone. This one isn't exactly fair, I guess, because yeah, they were ghost encounters on set, but they were also shooting on location in a very old fortress, so it's very possible those ghosts were there for other reasons and the movie was just also happening to film at that location. Still, having a direct encounter with a ghost on the set of a horror movie you're directing is enough to unsettle anyone. Whether they were from the castle or from the movie, it really doesn't matter to me. All that matters is that they were there, and that is enough to make anyone freak the heck out. Next time you watch the Conjuring movies, you can walk into it knowing that there was also something else afoot other than the spooky stuff on screen. Number 3 on this list is Poltergeist. Of course, one of the scariest horror movies has one of the scariest sets. Insider says Poltergeist is a creepy movie, sure, but it doesn't have the shock value of R-rated horror movies. The visual effects haven't exactly held up well, and plenty of horror films get made without any unusual happenings. So why, might you ask, would the set of Poltergeist have been haunted? Look no further than the props. As it was far too expensive to make realistic looking rubber and plastic skeletons, they opted to use real human skeletons on set for the scene in which actress Jo Beth Williams is pulled into the mud of her swimming pool by a bunch of skeletons. Honestly, this seems like a reckless move. You're just asking to be cursed, and cursed it was. In the scene in which a clown puppet gets possessed and strangles the Freeling's young son, Robbie, things went awry. During the filming of the scene, the mechanical clown puppet that was created to simulate the strangulation malfunctioned and actually started choking the actor during a take. Writer-producer Steven Spielberg had to jump in and rescue the child actor from his inanimate attacker. This obviously raised some red flags to the people working on the set and paranormal experts, but rumors really started spiraling when several of the people who worked on the film died pretty much right after they were done filming. 2 of the cast members from the original died right after they finished the movie, and then 2 more cast members died in a similar timeline after filming the sequels. Nowadays, people are scared about making another sequel because of whatever it is that's going on. Maybe it wasn't just a mechanical malfunction when that clown started going off after all. Number 2 on this list is The Exorcist. This is often considered one of the scariest movies of all time. Insider says The Exorcist has a reputation for being one of the scariest movies of its time, perhaps of all time. If any movie was haunted or cursed in reality, it'd have been this one. There were tons of things that went wrong on set, from set malfunctions to 2 different actresses sustaining significant injuries during stunts gone wrong. This led many to believe that there was some malicious entity on set giving filmmakers a hard time. Perhaps the biggest evidence of supernatural meddling was a suspicious fire that forced the production to rebuild much of the set. It was theorized that a bird flew into some electrical equipment on set, but the resulting fire destroyed a large section of the set while mysteriously leaving Reagan's room set alone. If you've seen The Exorcist, you know that that room was the area the demon most frequently occupied in the film. The superstition around this film is so great, some believe it's dangerous to even play the movie. Doing so invites negative entities toward you, as the urban legend goes, similar to using a Ouija board. When the fear literally extends all the way to people even watching the movie, that's when you know that something is seriously up. I personally think that something paranormal had to be going on here. Maybe the reason that the movie was so scary and blew so many people away is because they managed to capture some of the real evil energy. Maybe that's why every time people watch it, it just spooks us to our cores. Obviously, it's just a theory, but it might make sense. Number 1 on this list is The Omen. This movie was just doomed from the start. Screen Rant says, The Omen is yet another film that is notorious for having a haunted production. To start off, the original star of the film, Gregory Peck, and executive Mark Newfield both traveled in planes that were struck by lightning. Peck then shot himself in the head a few months before shooting was set to start. One scene was filmed at a zoo, which focuses on the reactions of baboons. The baboons were so wild that an animal trainer had to be brought on set, but the animal trainer died the next day after a tiger got hold of his head. One of the special effects technicians named John Richardson got into a car accident about a month after the film was released, and while he survived, his passenger Liz Moore was beheaded. What the heck? It seems like everything that could have possibly went wrong did in fact go wrong for this movie. Like, we had multiple people who didn't even make it to the set for multiple reasons. I personally have never seen The Omen before, so if you've watched it, please let me know in the comments. What the heck was it about this movie that would have set something off? And was it clear that something was wrong while you were watching the movie? I'd love to hear it. Number 5 on this list is The Crow, a 1994 gothic horror superhero movie that's earned quite the cult following since its release. Similarly to some of our other entries on this list, it had one of the most tragic filming processes ever. Slash Film writes, The Crow had a slow and rocky production. According to Cursed Films, during pre-production, a mysterious figure called the offices and left a voicemail asking production to stop. This was followed by multiple tragedies. An electrician was badly burned, others were injured, then Lee died as the film was finishing filming, shot by accident when a prop gun malfunctioned. Since the film was late in production, the person responsible for handling weapon safety wasn't around to supervise the scene and wasn't able to ensure that all props were safe to use. Lee's scenes were completed by using a mixture of body doubles and then revolutionary CGI, but the film kept that charged and sad legacy, which has become impossible to separate from the story itself. Who was that mysterious figure and how did they know something bad was gonna happen? People have speculated that the phone call that was made was from a spirit from the other side. They believe that by going against the spirit and not doing what it said resulted in the tragedies that occurred. This could also be the curse that affects you if you watch this movie. A few people have reported getting a strange call a few days after seeing this film from an undisclosed number. The phone call will start super weirdly and will eventually tell them to stop doing something in their life. Just like what happened with the movie, if they continue to do whatever they were told not to, bad things will occur. Number 4 on this list is The Innkeepers. The Innkeepers is a really interesting one. You see, this movie is cursed based on where it was shot. Slash Film says, interestingly, West, who was the director of the movie, decided to make the film after hearing that the hotel where his crew stayed while shooting his previous film, The House of the Devil, was haunted. Well, the hotel that inspired the film is actually in the film, said West in an interview with IndieWire. The staff at the hotel believe it's haunted. The whole town believes it's haunted, so it has this kind of mystique quality to it. While West said that he's a skeptic and doesn't believe in ghosts, he and the cast lived in the hotel for the duration of the shooting, and he did see some doors opening and closing and TVs turning on and off, and mentioned that everyone who was sleeping there had very vivid dreams. Sarah Paxton, the star of the film, said that at nights her door would also violently fly open. It might just be because this is a scary movie and people get scared, but some people have reported similar occurrences happening in their home after they watched this movie. As if the haunting that happened at that hotel where they shot it somehow comes into the space where the movie is played. I'm not sure how much of this one I believe, but they did film it at an actual haunted location, so you never know. Number 3 on this list is Rosemary's Baby. One of the scariest movies of all time, might be one of the most cursed of all time, and this curse might even affect you when you watch it. Slash Films writes, at a party, the film's composer, Christoph Komeda, fell off a rocky slope and into a coma that he never recovered from, similar to the actions that the witches take in the novel to get rid of Rosemary's friend. Then there's also the story of Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski's wife. Reportedly, Tate auditioned repeatedly for the role of Rosemary, which ended up going to Pharaoh. She makes a background appearance in one of the film's scenes. While the film was still in theaters, Tate was killed in her home by followers of Charles Manson. At the time, she was pregnant. All of these events stoked the fear and the interest of the public, giving the film a bump in popularity and an infamous reputation. Levin himself said that he had mixed feelings about the film, claiming that while it gave him access to exclusive literary circles, it also helped popularize the occult and Satanism, which was prevalent during that time period. There was obviously something going on with the creation of this movie, and people believe that it can also be passed over to the viewer. Clearly, tragedy was involved when this movie was being made, and some sort of spirit or some sort of demonic omen was afoot. That tragic luck will, in rare cases, come in the form of a curse to somebody who watches this movie. This could all be fake Reddit stuff, but there was a story of how somebody watched this movie and then 9 days after doing so, while on a hike with their family, fell off of a rocky slope and got put into a coma, just like what happened to Komeda. Maybe this was a coincidence, maybe this wasn't even true, I'm not really sure. All we can say for sure is that something haunted the actual production of this movie, and I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think that that haunting could continue to those who watched this as well.
In at number 5 we have The Descent, 2005. First up, we have The Descent, a British film from 2005 about a caving exhibition. We follow a group of 7 women exploring a cave that's never been explored before. The only way out of the cave is through it, so they travel deeper and deeper until they're trapped deep underground. We watch as one by one they meet a horrible fate, some accidental climbing mistakes, others descending into madness. They soon find out they are not alone in the cave and are being pursued by terrifying hordes of crawlers, but what we might today call Wendigo. They are a race of cave-dwelling humanoids who have adapted to near-constant darkness and lost any previous trace of humanity they may have had, becoming monsters in the process. princess. The girls start to turn on each other while they struggle to survive in the darkness. They created 2 different endings for this film after deciding that the British ending was too dark for the US audience. In the US ending, our main character wakes up in the cave and crawls to the surface back to her car. When she is driving away, she pulls over and vomits, and when she leans back in the car, she is startled by the ghost of Juno sitting in the passenger seat. However, in the British version, they reveal that this was all a trick of her mind, and she wakes up back in the cave, having never escaped at all. The film ends with the screams of the crawlers getting louder as they surround her. This one is enough to make anyone scared of the dark. Coming in at number 4, we have Ringu, 1998, aka The Ring. We have all heard about the adaptation of The Ring, but have you seen the original, more horrifying one, Ringu? The story follows a reporter and her ex-husband as they investigate the sudden death of her niece, who died of a sudden heart failure, with an unnaturally horrified expression on her face. She then finds out that her niece recently visited a cabin with her friends. Each of them had died the exact same way on the exact same night. She visits the cabin to find out what could have caused them all to die so suddenly when she finds the unlabeled tape. After watching the tape, she understands that they had all been cursed as she was now. Things become more tense when Reiku's young son watches the tape, starting the 1-week countdown before he too dies. She has to break the curse or she and everyone she cares about will die in less than a week. Their discovery takes them to a volcanic island where they can discover that the video has a connection to a psychic who died 30 years ago and her child. In the end, they discover that the only way to break the curse is to copy it and show it to someone else, passing it on to them, dooming them instead of you. It's a good thing no one has a VHS player anymore. In at number 3, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. This one is sure to keep you up at night. A Nightmare on Elm Street follows a group of teenagers battling a killer who attacks in their dreams. We follow Nancy and her friends trying to figure out why they're being hunted and how to stop it. This was our first introduction to the infamous Freddy Krueger, a killer who is badly burned all over his body. He uses a gloved hand with razors to kill his victims. Nowadays, we all know who Freddy Krueger is, but in 1984, a killer who hunts you in your dreams was truly terrifying. Nancy has to struggle to stay awake throughout the filmmaking, depending on caffeine to keep her awake for days on end. They slowly discover that they are being hunted due to their parents being involved with Freddy's death. Nancy's mum revealed Krueger was an insane child murderer who had been released on a technicality and then burned alive by parents living on their street seeking vigilante justice. They attempt to bring Krueger out of the dream so they can kill him in the physical world. Could you stay awake for 7 days to avoid Freddy? I couldn't. In at number 2, we have Psycho, 1960. This was the original slasher film. When Psycho premiered in 1960, the audiences were screaming in horror. They could not believe their eyes. It took the world by storm and instantly became a classic for horror lovers. Alfred Hitchcock wanted to shock audiences and do something no one else had ever done before. The audience were horrified that Marion Crane, the main character, had been so brutally murdered. Never before had a main character died in a film, and here she was stabbed repeatedly within the first 30 minutes. Hitchcock even received an angry letter from one man claiming his daughter is now refusing to shower thanks to this film. The film continues when Marion's sister starts to wonder where she is. Marion had stolen money from her previous job and was hoping to make a new life when she stumbled into the Bates Motel. Lila hires a private detective to look into the disappearance, but once he goes to the Bates Motel, he too never returns. When Lila and her partner Sam go to visit the house, they see Norman Bates in the window. They go to the police to report all of the mysterious disappearances, where they are told that Norman's mother, has been dead for 10 years. Later it is revealed that Norman Bates had multiple personalities and had been acting as himself and his mother since her death, killing unsuspecting women who visit the motel. It might not seem like much now, but this film was as terrifying and horrific as films came in the 60s and paved the way for the horror genre. Freaked me the out. I saw it at 4. Accidentally.